and welcome to the Canguro English Podcast, a podcast about language for people who love languages and learning. I'm your host, Christian, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Matt. Matt, how are you today?
Hello, Christian. Hello, everyone. I'm excited today, Christian, because we're starting a new type of episode. Today's episode is a Canguro in the Wild episode, where we're going to learn from authentic, real-world English by listening to some sort of media like a video on YouTube, an interview with a famous person, or like today, from a speech. And that's why we're going to call these type of episodes Canguro in the Wild.
Canguro in the Wild.
Matt, who is that? Like, whose voice is that?
Okay, Christian, this is a guy named Hopper. And basically, he was an Australian guy that I found just wandering the streets.
G'day there, mate. Buongiorno.
And I invited him into my house, and he now lives in my basement. And in order to get food, he needs to be our narrator from time to time.
So basically, I can expect to hear more from Hopper during these In the Wild podcasts. Is that right?
That's right. I don't know what this Australian guy was doing in my little village in Italy, but he seems like he really came from the outback somewhere. So his name isn't really Hopper. It's more like Hopper.
Hopper.
That's right. It's Hopper.
Wow. Well, he is definitely very Australian. So I can't wait to hear more from him. Reminds me of home.
Yes. His accent does tend to drift depending on how much food he's had and how much we give him to drink. But yes, expect a little bit of Hopper from time to time, okay?
Okay, it's great. I love it.
Okay, let me give you a little bit more about how these episodes are structured. First, both Christian and I are going to analyze a piece of real English content from out in the wild, right? From the real world. And in today's episode, it's a famous speech from Apple CEO Steve Jobs. We're going to take a transcript of that content and break all the language we hear into categories. But in today's episode, we're going to look at adjectives, verbs, and phrasal verbs.
Yes, and we are going to discuss the 5 most interesting words in each one of those categories. Can you explain how that works?
Right, Christian. Here's how it works. So the first category we'll look at today is adjectives. Now, Steve Jobs uses more than 60 unique adjectives in his speech. And Christian and I both went through all those adjectives alone and made our own top 10 lists. So, Christian, how was it trying to rank these adjectives and find a top 10?
Actually, it was quite difficult. I think not because specifically because of the language or the choice of words. I think it's just I'm very indecisive, so I find it difficult to make decisions in general. So it was a nightmare, actually. It was really hard.
Well, look, everyone, after Christian made his top 10 rankings of the adjectives, he sent it to me in a closed, sealed envelope. And then I very carefully opened it up and combined Christian's list with my own top 10 list using a point system.
And how do the points work?
We use a ranking system. So a ranking of first place is worth 10 points. A ranking of second place is worth 9 points, and so on. So Christian, you had your most important adjective, that got 10 points. Your second most important one, it got 9 points. And then I combined the points together to get our amazing, extremely accurate top 5 ranking of the most interesting adjectives. So, Christian, there was no corruption going on here. Nobody paid me behind the scenes to put a word up at the top or anything. In my list combined, it's kind of like a Frankenstein monster. We have to look at it and see what we get.
Actually, I'm excited to find out if any of our words were the same, if they were completely different. Yeah, it's exciting.
Now, it's important to say that Christian has no idea which words have made the final top 5. Okay, so I'll be revealing the winners. That means showing the winners in real time, live, to everyone listening and to Christian.
Awesome.
Now, one final thing. Before we reveal the winners in our categories, we're going to start each one of these episodes with a short overview of what we're listening to that week. This will give you a little context about the speaker, in this case, Steve Jobs, right? And to help us get to our top 5 lists as fast as possible, these little overviews will always be under 60 seconds. We're going to call them the briefing section.
Canguro in the wild. The briefing.
Today's words come from a famous speech made by Steve Jobs to graduating students at Stanford University in 2005. He was 50 years old at the time and would die only 6 years later after battling cancer. Steve Jobs is most famous for being one of the creators of the Apple brand and for being an innovator. His speech is 15 minutes long and is easily available online if you would like to listen to it in full, though you don't need to do that to follow this podcast. Steve Jobs is giving a commencement speech, a type of formal speech given to students at a final graduation ceremony. The goal of these types of speeches is to inspire, offer advice, and celebrate the start of a new chapter in life. Okay, now that we know a little bit more about where we're getting our words, let's move to our first category.
The top 5 adjectives.
So as I mentioned before, there were over 60 unique adjectives in the commencement speech. We're calling this the most interesting list. That's not that easy, right, Christian? Because there could be a word that's really practical, helpful, useful, but it's a word most people already know. Do we just choose the infrequent ones that most of our learners don't know, or do we choose the more practical, useful ones? I tried to balance it out. I don't know exactly what you did.
I tried to choose words that I thought would be really useful to learners. That was my kind of criteria.
Well, coming in at 5th place is actually an adjective that's the oldest adjective on our list.
Oh,
It goes back to Old English. And you put this word at 3rd place, so it got 8 points. This word was not on my list at all.
oh,
And the word is last.
last, right.
Why did you put that word on the list?
The first reason I did it was that so people could hear the difference between our vowels, right? So my pronunciation of that word is last.
And I would say last.
Right. And I think the other reason I chose it is because, yes, it's a really common word. I'm sure that it's in top 1,000, but also I think it has a few different meanings that maybe some learners don't use. And also it appears in lots of different idioms. So I feel like it's like really flexible and really useful word.
Right. I mean, last is used in 2 big ways, I think. One is the final thing in a sequence, the last train, right? It's the last word in the speech. So it's the final thing. But it's also used in another way with something about continuing over time. Like this podcast won't last very long if we don't focus and make it entertaining.
Yes.
Right. And that kind of last is different. It's something about continuing, right?
Yeah, and it kind of feels like maybe those 2 things are kind of opposites in some way, right? Like how can the word mean on one hand that something is continuing kind of, forever, and on the other hand it means like the end of something, right? It feels like a contradiction.
Right. Well, I'm happy you said that because I looked up where these words come from. They come from Old English. And the connection between them is that they both connect to the idea of remaining until the end. Okay? So think if you're the last person who's waiting at the doctor's office. Yes, you're the final one in order, the final in the sequence, but you also waited for a long time. You continue to wait and wait and wait and wait until the end.
Right.
And that's the connection between these.
Right. That makes sense. You actually used one of the idioms as well when you introduced the word, right? You said the last word. That's an idiom that's especially used when people are arguing. Okay. It's like, you always have to have the last word. You have to say the final thing.
Yeah. It is a word that shows up in a lot of idiomatic expressions like the last but not the least, last but not least,
Yes.
right? Which means this is the last thing I'm saying, but it doesn't mean it's the least important. Let's listen to Steve Jobs and how he used it.
If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today?
Yeah, so in his speech, he uses it in the sense of it's like the final thing, right? It's the final day of your life. And I've heard a lot of motivational speakers using this same, I don't know, like technique, no? Like you should try to live your life as if death could happen at any moment, like this could be your last day on earth. But I think that they underestimate what I would actually do if it was my final day on earth, because
So you're not saying you'd finish the project or, do something really, to help the world.
Nope.
But you do something to have fun.
Yeah, I would like rob a bank, and I would steal a Ferrari. God knows what else I would do, but I certainly wouldn't be worried about, am I going to clear my inbox of emails? No, I don't think so. I mean, would you, Matt? What would you do with your final day on Earth?
Yeah, there's that romantic kind of, I like to spend the time with my wife, with my son. Then again, it would be fun to go rob a bank with you and
Yeah, look, we can bring the family. Like, let's rob a bank together. Like, let's bring the kids. I think it'd be great fun, right?
and then we'd have we leave our lasting legacy. There we go. Last.
Ooh, nice.
Well, look, let's put the last word, the adjective last, and let's look at our fourth most interesting word. And Christian, this one is one of those that I had on my list very high, but it wasn't on your list at all.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know how you could ignore this one. And this adjective has a strange pronunciation related to how it's written. The word is subtle.
Oh, I did look at including that word on my list. And the only reason I didn't, I think, is because the word is kind of identical in Spanish. And I don't know, it was too familiar to me. So I didn't put it on my list, but it's a great word. What a great word.
This word comes from Old French, and the story behind it is that you see that SUB, that sub. So what's sub in English, Christian? When you hear sub, what do you think?
I think about like underneath, like a submarine goes like under the water, right?
That's right. So that sub comes from under. And then the other part, it comes from a word that meant something like cloth or a web. The original idea of this word is that it was describing something that was finely woven. What does that mean? It's like you have a needle and you're making clothes. So you move the string in and out of the clothing and you weave something. Difficult verb there. So it moved from finely woven to delicate, and then that moved to hard to notice, and that moved to nuanced. And today it means subtle.
Right.
Which I guess is a little bit like it's under the surface. You don't really see it right away. It's not bright and jumping in your face, right? It's a subtle thing. It's small.
It's clear to see that we took the word from French, right? Because, we have a silent letter, and, 99% of the time when there's a silent letter in the word, you know that it came from French, right?
Right. Students ask all the time, what's up with your spelling system? Yeah. Why don't you pronounce this word like subtly or subtile or subtly, or right? It's subtle. What a strange pronunciation.
Yeah.
That's just from our history. And a lot of the times it has to do with French somehow, morphing into English.
Well, as Anglo-Saxons, Matt, we can take great pleasure in blaming the French for anything. So this is perfect. A perfect opportunity to blame them for English spelling, right?
Right. That wasn't very subtle, Christian. That was more on the nose, right? Correct.
But it makes sense to me that it started with, this idea that if a fabric is very delicate, if a fabric is very kind of soft, it doesn't have an exaggerated feeling under your fingers. It feels kind of like soft and delicate. And I can see how that word the meaning would evolve over time. Yeah.
Let's listen to how Steve Jobs used it, okay? He's speaking about calligraphy.
It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture. And I found it fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect place to use the word, right? Because on your computer, you might have 100 different fonts, and they're all just different in some small way, right? Like some small, subtle way that maybe some people don't even care, they don't even notice. But for other people, it's like, oh my God, how could you use that font? Like, what? You used Comic Sans for the presentation? You're a monster.
Yeah, Christian is a font monster, everyone. He really wants specific fonts on the Canguro English things, right? That's probably because you worked as a graphic designer, right, Christian? You're focused on that.
Yeah, I did work as a designer for a while. I wasn't a very good designer, but that was when I learned that you don't actually have to be very good at something to be quite successful at something.
Good life lesson. Okay, Christian, time for the next word. Let's move to the third most interesting word. And finally, we have one that we both had on our list.
Ooh,
so
okay.
I had this word in third place on my list, pretty high up, and you had it at seventh place. And the adjective is neat. What a neat word. Neat. Why did you put neat on your list?
I chose it for two reasons. Again, because it has like two big different meanings. And also because, again, I feel like there's some regional differences. And also maybe there's some like differences in how the word is used between different generations. Because what's the context? Like, how does Steve Jobs use it in his speech? Can you play the clip?
It was idealistic, overflowing with neat tools and great notions.
He was speaking about a magazine that he said was really interesting.
Yeah, and the way he's using it, so he's using it as an adjective to describe, I don't know, it's kind of like a synonym for cool.
Yeah, excellent.
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah, amazing, cool. Cool's a good one. Interesting.
Does that feel a little bit old-fashioned to you now? Like, would you say, oh, that's neat?
I would say it. I think that's a quite typical American thing, but I'm not sure if a 20-year-old would say it. I get what you mean. It is a little bit old-fashioned, or it feels a little childish almost. Sometimes I want to use like, oh, that's so neat. A voice like that. It actually doesn't feel like a cool thing to say.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a great example of how language it comes in and out of fashion, and how the words that you use when you're younger or when you're kind of developing your language identity, they can kind of stay with you your whole life. And I think it really can affect how people view you, right? Like if you're an adult, but you're kind of stuck in this vocabulary from 30 years ago, I don't know. I think it can change the way that maybe young people can relate to you, actually.
Right. It kind of places you in time. And the interesting thing, too, is that when the young people used neat, it probably was a cool word to use, let's say. But as that generation gets older and older and older, the young people don't want to sound like the older people. That's just a language thing throughout all time and languages, I think. So the word starts to get an older, uncool feeling because you're older. Hey! And the young people create a new word. Yeah, neat, I think, has a little bit that feeling of being, I'm not sure, slightly old-fashioned, slightly innocent, slightly...
like PG-13 kind of word?
Yes, something like that, right?
Yes.
Christian, we didn't speak about the other meaning of neat, which if anyone out there actually puts into a translator, the first meaning of neat that you'll find is probably something like clean, orderly, tidy.
Yes.
And that's where that word actually comes from in its history. It used to mean something like pure, clear, clean. All right. And then it's morphed over into the second meaning. But we still do use neat a lot. Like you have neat handwriting, or your desk in the office is very neat. You're neat and tidy. You have a neat appearance. So we still use that form more, I think, actually.
My wife makes a very clear distinction between clean and neat and tidy, right? So it's like your house can actually be super messy, with things everywhere, but it can be clean.
Mhm.
And also your house could be very like neat, but it could be dirty, right?
Right. And what's the difference?
Well, for her, it's like, for example, my desk. On my desk, all of my pens could be in their correct places, and my keyboard could be perfectly aligned, and everything on my desk is in its place. But my desk is completely covered in dust and crumbs from the food that I've been eating at my desk, and right? So that's a big difference for her.
So neat has to do with being in order, like lined up correctly. Everything's in the right place, etc.
Yes.
Let's try to stay, nice and neat and in order and keep moving with our list. Okay. So let's move up to second place. Second place. We both had this one high up on our list. I had it in fourth place, but you had it in first place. Do you remember what you put in first place, Christian?
Priceless.
Priceless, right. I think that's an interesting one. I mean, just from the word itself, because of price and then less, that suffix less is interesting to talk about. Is that why you chose it?
Actually, the reason I chose it is because I thought that it would be a good shortcut for people to use in a conversation. Because when somebody does something which is really funny, or if they tell you a story about something that's really unexpected, you can just reply with just that one word. You can just say priceless.
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 I'm walking into the classroom and I slip on something on the floor, like a banana peel, and I slip, I fall down, flip over a desk, and my pants flip backwards. And you might just be in the corner and say,
priceless.
That was priceless.
This one word can replace a lot of other words. It's just a great like single word reply that you can use in a conversation. So that's why I chose it. Why did you put it on your list?
I thought it was an interesting word, and I liked the suffix, that less part, because that less part, maybe it's clear for most people listening, but it's something like without, right? So priceless, you're without price. There's no price. There's no value you can put on something. But we have other examples like you're fearless, without fear. The situation is hopeless. The next one, Christian, if our podcast doesn't do very well, we're both going to be homeless.
Well, you're a little bit wrong about that, because I'm going to be homeless whether the podcast does well or not.
I'm speechless.
Speechless.
So I think that less part is quite good. Are you ready, Christian, for the number one most interesting adjective?
I'm ready.
Remember, there were 60 adjectives to choose from, and we both chose this one in first or second place, which is a bit crazy.
Really?
I had it in first place with 10. You had it in second place with 9 points. And that word is foolish.
Oh, I mean, I chose the word because I think that it's so important to understanding this speech. And I feel like as a teacher, it's not a word actually that I see. Like, I don't remember seeing it in like activity books or workbooks. I don't really remember being asked about it in class. So I kind of actually feel like it's kind of a rare word.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this speech is famous for this stay foolish line. I felt like it had to be up there towards the top of the list.
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
You're right. I don't think I've ever had anyone actually ask me about foolish, but I have explained the word fool before. So, fool, who's a fool? If you want to know who a fool is, Christian, just take a mirror, look in it, and there you go.
Look in the mirror. Oh, shit. What a burn. Okay. So a fool is like a clown, basically, right?
Right. Well, I think there's a connection between a court jester, yeah, a fool, like you have a king and a queen, and you have that character, that person who's making jokes with that little hat with bells on it. I connect the word fool to that as well. And so that's kind of both funny and stupid at the same time.
I guess maybe the difference between a fool and a clown is like a clown is designed to make you laugh. Is a fool the same? I kind of think not.
Right. Today, fool is more connected to being stupid. that you don't have anything to say, you're an idiot, you're a moron. It's something like that. This word actually comes from Old French, a similar word, fool, I'm not sure how to say it, meant mad or insane. And that came from a Latin word that had to do with saying a lot of empty-headed things or silly things.
Do you feel as well like this is another word, like maybe similar to neat, that kind of feels a bit old-fashioned? Like I don't know if I could imagine myself saying to somebody, "Oh, that's foolish." I would say like that's stupid or that's dumb.
Right, I agree. It feels like something we might find more in writing or even a speech. Like this is a written speech, right? So would Steve Jobs have used that otherwise? Would he use that word in his everyday life? Well, he actually was quoting something from a magazine, like an inspirational quote. So maybe he wouldn't use it in his normal everyday speaking, but it fits the speech. Actually, let me play the quote, Christian.
Stay hungry, stay foolish. It was their farewell message as they signed off. Stay hungry, stay foolish. And I have always wished that for myself. And now, as you graduate to begin anew, I wish that for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish.
So I wonder if the same magazine was printed today, maybe it might say something like "Stay hungry, stay stupid." Do you think? It doesn't have the same elegance, does it?
Right, stupid sounds negative. Foolish, yes, it's a negative thing, but there's a bit of silliness or playing inside of there of having fun, of joking around. And so it sounds more elegant. I agree.
Or maybe also like it's a little bit like you're naive, like you're more like a child. No, you kind of you believe that anything's possible, right? That kind of foolish.
Yes, right, right. I think when you're learning English out there, I suppose we shouldn't always be so serious, right? So we should be a little foolish. We should joke around a little bit. That'll probably help you remember vocabulary more than being so serious.
Absolutely.
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
Well, there you go, Christian. There's our top 5 most interesting adjectives from this Steve Jobs speech. Now, there were some honorable mentions. Okay, we had some ties down at in 6th place. One of those words that tied for 6th place, I was really afraid that it was going to be the first word we had to talk about because that word was naked.
Oh,
But we'll have to save that for another day. We both had it in the middle of our lists, naked.
okay.
We also had rejected in the middle of our lists. We'll save those for another day. Okay, everyone, those were the top 5 adjectives. Now, let's go find out what the top 5 verbs are.
The top 5 verbs.
The 5th most interesting verb from the speech was to hire somebody.
Oh, so the reason that I chose this word is because recently I had a class where someone asked me the difference between renting and hiring. Why did you choose this word?
I chose it for exactly the same reason, because there's that business reason of hiring someone. Let's speak about that first, and then maybe we can get to that problem. So when you hire somebody in a company, that's when the company decides they want you, you sign a contract, and then they hire you. Okay. Now, in all the English-speaking world, that has the same meaning. But what I think you're speaking about, Christian, is something to do with cars on holiday, on vacation. That's what you're speaking about, right?
Yes, and also because the two words seem very similar, like sometimes they overlap and sometimes they don't, right? So yes, you can hire a person for a company, but you can't rent a person. That sounds really bad if you say it. Like I'm going to rent a person. It sounds like you're treating them like an object or something, right?
Right. That's so true. Because in British English, and I'm not sure, maybe in Australian English, you can hire a car when you go on holiday.
Yes, absolutely.
But in North America, we rent a car. As a Californian guy, I would never say I hire a car. That doesn't make any sense to me. I rent the car. But in other types of English, you can hire the car. Now, you listeners out there, you may have learned one or the other, but it's important to say both are right. It just depends where you are.
So what about if you're talking about like a piece of machinery, like if you wanted like a pressure washer or like an excavator? Would you always use rent?
I would always use rent. So, I need to lose some weight, Christian. I might rent some equipment to exercise with in my house, something like that.
What about if it's an office? If we're talking about like an office in a building, you can rent the office. Can you also hire the office?
No, for me as a North American, the only thing that hire means is that idea of taking somebody into your company, of hiring somebody, giving them a job. All those other meanings, we would use rent.
Right.
Normally. You know what? Actually, looking into this word while preparing for this, there's a connection in history, and that's what's going on. So in old English, this word had to do with paying for temporary use or service. So it kind of had both of those meanings, right? You got somebody's service for payment. And that idea continues on in British English, but not in North American English. That meaning died off when they went across the Atlantic, I guess.
I'm wondering if I went on holiday to the United States and I said, I want to hire a car. Do you think that would cause a problem with understanding, or would it just be like, oh, he talks funny?
I think, especially if you said it at a car rental place, I would hope they would know it and they would just look at you like you speak really foolishly. No, they would clearly understand that you're not from there. I mean, the way you said car, that was so, not American, the way you said it. So they would notice that right away. And I think they would know that. But if you were speaking to someone in the street and you're like, yeah, last week I hired a horse. What do you mean you hired a horse in your company?
Oh, I see. They'd be like, oh my God, one of his employees is a horse. Is that right?
Right.
Oh.
At the next office, there's just a horse, sitting there with glasses on, working at the desk. How much are you paying the horse? Does he have a contract? Can you fire him easily?
Nay.
Would you say hire a horse?
Yeah, absolutely. Hire a horse, yeah.
You could. In Perth, you could hire a horse and go ride it.
Hire a horse. You can hire a boat as well. Like if you want to go out on the water, a boat hire. In fact, you can even hire like an umbrella and a lounge chair to go on the beach.
That's amazing, because in my California head, in your office, Christian, you just have like a boat, a horse. There's Mr. Umbrella who's over there. Hello. Mrs. Sun Lounger.
Hello.
So yeah, it sounds like they're working for you.
Do you want to hear a completely ridiculous fact about the beach? The most deadly object, like the object that kills more people on the beach than anything else, is umbrellas, because the umbrellas, very often they get picked up by the wind, and then suddenly you have a gigantic sharp spike flying through the air.
Oh my God. What? In my head, I thought you were going to say that people are hanging onto the umbrellas and they just fly away like, Mary Poppins. I mean, wouldn't that be horrible if, my brother got killed by a beach umbrella? It doesn't sound like the coolest way to die. I mean, that's really sad. I'm sorry to anyone out there if your family member's been killed by a beach umbrella.
You have to cut this bit.
Okay, Christian, that was an amazing fact, but I'm going to try to keep us, neat and tidy and in order. So let's listen to how Steve Jobs uses the verb hire.
As Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented.
So he's just speaking about hiring a person in a company. He is from the United States, so he wouldn't hire a horse.
Maybe there are horses designing laptops at Apple. You have no idea, Matt.
That's what they pay them with, are apples,
Oh my God. That's such a bad joke.
Okay, everyone. That's what we might call a dad joke, a really stupid joke. I think we should move on.
Yes.
In fact, the next verb in our list is what we should do right now. The verb is to quit, to stop.
The reason I chose this was actually because, again, I feel like it's a shortcut that a lot of learners can use, right? So I think that most people would use it as a verb in like a sentence. For example, I quit smoking, or I need to quit eating so much chocolate. But Another way you can use it is like as an order or as an imperative and say, look, quit annoying me. And I feel like that use is like a really good shortcut, but maybe a lot of people don't use that.
Right. I think a lot of learners would just say, stop, right? That's easier to say. Stop annoying me. Stop it. Where a lot of English speakers do say, quit it.
So why did you choose the word?
Actually, Christian, I didn't choose the word. You had this at second place, so it got 9 points. And this one wasn't even on my list at all. So
Oh, okay. Okay. I muscled it in, right?
yeah, sometimes in this ranking system, that might be called a muscle job. That's when you push in a word really high in the rankings, so you're sure that it'll make the final list. But you're right, Christian, that does come up in lessons sometimes. Quit smoking is a really typical one. And if you're learning English for business reasons, you quit your job. But when it's your decision, we typically use this one. So you go to your boss, Christian, I quit.
I think just like the sound of the word, like that qu and the t, it's very kind of, let's say, a sharp sound. And it's so much more, I think, powerful than I resign. You know, resign sounds so kind of soft, don't you think?
Yeah, right. Quit does sound strong. Those consonants give it some strength. And it's connected to the old meaning. This actually comes from an old Latin word that's about making something quiet or at rest. It has to do with freeing oneself from a duty or an obligation. So when you quit your job,
Right.
yes, you're freeing yourself. You're making things quiet as you walk away.
Yeah, like everything, like it's like finally I can just sit on the sofa and watch Netflix and it'll be all quiet and nice.
Have you ever heard to quit cold turkey? What's that mean? You know I love turkeys, Christian.
This is not the first time that we've talked about turkeys on this podcast.
Right, and it won't be the last, I promise you. So what does it mean if I quit cold turkey?
So quitting cold turkey is like when you stop doing something immediately. So like maybe if you're trying to stop smoking, maybe one technique is you slowly over time you reduce the amount of cigarettes you have per day. But if you quit cold turkey, it's like one day you're smoking and the next day you completely stop. But I have no idea of the origin. Like what does cold turkey have to do with quitting? Do you know?
I know the answer, but only because I prepared for this episode, okay? The reason has to do with drug addicts. When they stop taking drugs abruptly, their body suffers from cold sweats and goosebumps. Goosebumps, what I think you call in Britain or Australia, goose pimples.
Yeah, I've even heard the variation goose flesh,
That sounds horrible.
which I think sounds really hilarious. I know it sounds horrible.
Yeah, but what are goosebumps? Goosebumps are those little bumps you get on your skin if you're really scared. Maybe you see a ghost or something. And then I have goosebumps on my arms. And there was a connection between that and quitting cold turkey. Now, I'm not sure if that's accurate. Maybe that's just a folk etymology here, but I'm going to go with that as the reason.
So the person that is like, if you're like stopping cigarettes dramatically, or like you're stopping taking drugs, then basically your body looks like a cold turkey.
Exactly. You know, when you look in the mirror, Christian, you look like a hot turkey. Okay. I think we should quit this discussion and move on to the third word in our list. And the third one in our list is something that I put up very high, but you put down in 10th place. Okay, but I had it up at third place. And that's the verb to hitchhike.
Oh, you know, I put the word on the list because it's just such a specific word. Matt, can you explain what hitchhiking is?
Hitchhiking is if you don't have a car and you need to go somewhere far away. So you walk into the street, well, the side of the street. Let's not go in the middle of the street. You're on the side of the street. You put your hand out and you put your thumb up. And you hope that somebody will pick you up and bring you to your destination. So that whole idea right there is hitchhiking, to hitchhike.
Matt, have you ever hitchhiked in your life?
Actually, I have, Christian.
Really?
Only a few times when I was in New Zealand, of all places, a long time ago. I was backpacking and, I would never hitchhike in the US because I grew up thinking that if you hitchhiked and you would get murdered. If I got in a car, somebody would murder me, cut me into pieces and eat me or something, right? Anyways, so when I was in New Zealand, I didn't have any money. I was young, traveling around, and everyone suggested hitchhiking. So yeah, I did that. I was really afraid to do it, Christian, but the first person who ever picked me up hitchhiking was a nice, sweet, older lady.
No way. Really?
Really. And she wouldn't even bring me to my next destination without making a stop along the way because she wanted to show me some landmarks and things. I'm not sure if that's normal today. What about you, Christian? Have you ever hitchhiked in Australia?
I have never hitchhiked in my life, but I do know a joke about hitchhiking if you want to hear it. It's a really bad joke.
Oh, bad jokes are the best.
So one day there's a guy and he's hitchhiking, and this car stops and he gets in the car and it's a little old grandma, and he's a big, tall, strong man, and he says to the grandma, "Look, thanks so much for stopping. I really appreciate it. And don't worry, I'm not a serial killer or anything." And the grandma turns to him and says, "Don't worry, dear. The probability of being two serial killers in the same car is so tiny." Yeah, that's so bad. And just cut it out.
No, I'm going to leave it in.
So one thing about this word is that when I was writing my list to send it to you, I wasn't actually sure how to spell the word, because when I typed it, I put just one H in the middle, but then I was like, no, that doesn't look right. So I had to put two H's in the middle, which also kind of doesn't look right. But that's because it's like two different words, right? It's hitch and hike.
So a hitch is something, well, I think of it this way, like a hook, something you have on the back of your car. Let's say you're pulling a trailer behind your truck, and on the back of your truck, you have that little metal ball kind of thing. That thing is the hitch, right? Or the system to connect the car and the trailer, that's the hitch. And then to hike is when you walk in nature. So you go hiking or trekking. Put those together and we get hitch hike. And that's where this word comes from.
It's interesting because in Australian English, we don't call it a hitch. We call it a tow bar.
Uh-huh. So do you go tow bar trekking or something, or tow bar hiking?
No, it's still hitchhiking.
Some similar words to hitchhiking could be to bum a ride or get a lift, though I think we use those a lot with friends. So I say to my friend, "Can you give me a lift? Can I bum a ride?" I don't ask my friend, "Can I hitchhike with you?" Right? To hitchhike is really specific, that thing with your thumb in the street.
Yeah, it has to be a stranger. It has to be somebody you don't know.
Right. So let's listen to how Steve Jobs used this.
On the back cover of their final issue was a photograph of an early morning country road, the kind you might find yourself hitchhiking on if you were so adventurous.
So he was speaking about an image on the back of a magazine of a street where you might go hitchhiking. Okay, everyone, let's go to our second most interesting verb. Now, I had this one in 4th place, and Christian had it in 5th place, which gave it 12 points, all right? And the verb was to waste. Stop wasting my time. Stop wasting my money.
Yeah. Again, I chose the word because I feel like it's a really useful word, but I feel like I never actually see it in any teaching materials. So I feel like it's a word that it's super useful, but probably a lot of learners don't feel confident about how to use it. That's my feeling.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a really helpful word to know, a good verb, especially in the business world where you're speaking about time, money, energy, resources, and all of those things. We can waste them, right? You're wasting my time. You're wasting my money. This project is a waste of resources, right? So what does it actually mean if you waste something?
In your house, right, you have a tube where you put all of the things, especially the liquids that you don't want anymore. So in your bath, you have the waste pipe. And in your kitchen, you have the waste pipe from the sink. It's where all the things go that you don't want. So is that the origin of the word? That it's if you're wasting my time, it's you're kind of throwing it away or treating it like like garbage.
Originally, it comes from Latin, and it had to do with actually devastating things or destroying things. And we still have that meaning in English, Christian, when we say an army laid waste to a city. The medieval army could waste a village, which would mean to destroy it completely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's softened over time. Now it's like you're throwing it into the trash. If you're wasting money, you're throwing it into the trash. You're destroying it.
You know, my grandmother, she had a fridge magnet on her fridge, right? And the fridge magnet had a picture of a really like obese, like a very fat woman. And underneath it said, "It's better in the waist than on the waist." And the idea was, because there's two words in English with the identical pronunciation, right? So waist is like when you throw something away, but your waist is the part of your body like above your hips, below your ribs, like the smallest part of your body, in theory. In theory, right?
The smallest is the biggest part of my body.
I think maybe for a healthy person, it's the smallest part. I think the fridge magnet was playing with the pronunciation that it's identical, right? So it's saying it's better to throw it away than for it to be on your body, right? Those calories.
To waste we're speaking about is waste, waste, and the one around your stomach, around the middle of your body, is spelled
waist.
right, and they're both pronounced waste. Well, let's not waste anybody else's time and listen to the clip from Steve Jobs.
Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life.
That's a good quote. I like that.
It's funny. It's funny. I saw an insult on the internet yesterday. There was a post on Instagram asking for people's favorite insults. One of them was, "I know that you're doing your best, but can you try someone else's best?"
What a priceless quote that is. Okay, look, let's not waste more time. Let's go on to the first verb in our list. The number one most interesting verb from the whole speech out of all 90 of those verbs. Christian, something really crazy is we both chose the same number one
No.
most interesting verb of all.
No way.
Crazy.
Wow. Out of 90.
Out of 90, we chose the same number one, which is a bit crazy. Do you remember what it was? What did you put up there at number one?
It was to settle.
To settle. That's right. That was the number one verb from this speech. Actually, I think it's an interesting verb just in itself. It's also interesting how he used it. Why don't we listen to it first and then we can speak about it?
And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle.
I actually think that a majority of English learners will not understand what he's trying to say in that sentence, because the word settle is such an unusual verb, and it has I just feel like I've never seen it in the classroom. No one's ever asked me about that word.
That's a problem, right? Because in the speech, that's a really important sentence. But if you're listening and you don't know that verb, I mean, you get lost. So sometimes it's nice to learn vocabulary just for understanding, right? These aren't words that we may actually use, but they're helpful. And this verb, I think you would find it in a lot of motivational speeches. To settle. What does to settle mean? Actually, maybe the origin helps. So this comes from Old English, and there's a word that meant something like place. Actually, to sit. It's a little connected to sit, like sit down. And the core idea throughout history is that when you settle, it means you come to rest in a place or in a situation, and you settle down. So you stop moving and you sit.
Yeah, it's interesting because in Australia, the first groups of British people that moved to Australia to colonize the country, we call them settlers. And in a way, I think in a way that specific word was used to avoid using other language which sounds negative, like colonizers.
Invaders.
Yeah, invaders, exactly. But settlers, it sounds nice, right? It's like you're just moving there to live.
Right.
You're not like, It doesn't matter that you're killing, thousands of native people. No, no, we're settling.
It's true. The verb does sound like you're just kind of moving and you're not moving quickly. When I think of settle, I think of things just slowly, calmly kind of calming down. Like you could shake up something in liquid, and if you just wait a while, the particles will settle down to the bottom. So they kind of slowly move. And that's kind of the same, right? With these settlers. It's the same in the West of the United States.
Yeah.
Those people in wagons, we might call them settlers. And then they settled. And it sounds like there was just open nature and they just planted a city there.
It's interesting, though, how the way that Steve Jobs is using it is kind of negative, right? He's saying, don't stop and relax and live. Like, it's kind of like, keep fighting, keep pushing, keep moving.
So keep looking, don't settle.
Right. Don't give up. Don't surrender. Keep moving. Right. That's what he's saying. So sometimes settle could have that feeling. We use that with the relationship sometimes, Christian, right? That maybe there's a boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and maybe even a husband and wife, but they're fighting. They shouldn't really be together, but one of them just kind of gives up.
Yeah.
Trying to move away or change things, and they just settle.
She's like, I'm too old. I'm never going to do any better than this. I'll just settle with Matt.
Hopefully my wife didn't just settle for me, though. Maybe she did.
And also, I think when you're maybe if you're like 20 years old,
right,
and you don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you're not interested in having a relationship, you're not interested in having kids. Like maybe your parents, they say to you, when are you going to meet a nice girl and settle down?
Yeah, to settle down, which sounds like you make a family and you build a house and you get married and you have kids and you stop having adventures, right? That's to settle down. We also use this with legal things, Christian. Like we have a dispute, we have a fight, a legal fight. I want money from you, but we could settle the case out of court. That means you give me some money, I'm happy, okay. I sign a document that says we're good, and now we don't need to have the legal case in front of a judge. We settle. So the fight settles down, it stops.
Also, if you're a parent, this might be useful, okay, to go with, like, if your children are misbehaving, you can say, quit it, but you can also say, settle down.
I think a teacher might use that with kids. There's a lot of kids making a lot of noise, a lot of movement, jumping up and down, and the teachers, settle down, calm down. Well, look, let's not settle here with the verbs. We have one more category to get through, and that's the top 5 most interesting phrasal verbs.
Now it's time for the top 5 phrasal verbs.
Well, the number 5 most interesting phrasal verb is to turn out.
Turn out. Was that only on my list or was that on your list too?
So you had this in 5th place. I had it in 3rd place. We should listen to the clip first to try to understand how Steve Jobs is using it, and then we can talk about it.
I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
So in that clip, he's using it as a synonym for like in the end, or like in conclusion, or like the final thing that happened, something like that.
I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Maybe this phrasal verb specifically kind of gives you the idea that the result was surprising in some way, like unexpected in some way.
It's like something was hidden and then it became visible. So you know what? In history, this had a physical meaning, and I think putting this image in your head maybe it'll help. Think if you have pockets in your pants, and then you turn out your pockets. So something like you pull them and then you take them out. Think that we're poor, we don't have any money, right? We're just staying there and our pockets are hanging out. They're empty so that the contents came out. It's like something was hidden inside, and then now it's pulled out so that you can see it. So it's about something that was hidden, and then it became visible in some way.
A tip for anybody who's who finds phrasal verbs really difficult is to just focus on that final part, right? The out part. If I say that like I something out a secret, I think it's kind of clear, even if you don't know the first part of that phrasal verb, then by just listening to the out part, I think it kind of makes sense.
In this case, the out is like it's outside in the open.
So it's like I did this thing, and then I did this thing, and then I did this thing, and then out in the open, this thing appeared, like this result kind of appeared to me.
Right, right.
Can I be honest? One of the reasons that I chose this phrasal verb was because I wanted to tell another really bad joke. One day, a magician is walking down the street and he turns into a supermarket. That's the joke. It's so stupid, right? But there's this double meaning, right? That to turn into could mean he just like literally turned and walked into the supermarket, or because he's a magician, he transformed into a supermarket.
Right. To turn into can mean to transform.
It's interesting that his example literally follows the origin story that you gave, right? Like if you turn out your pockets, like you can't see what's in the pockets, and then you turn out the pockets, you can see what's in the pockets.
I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Not an easy one, right? Well, maybe it is an easy one. Phrasal verbs are an interesting thing. I think the more we study them, the more we focus on the participle, on that out, in, up, on the second piece, the more you start to get a good feeling of what the phrasal verb may mean. There are two ways to attack phrasal verbs. One is to just kind of memorize what it means, and translate it over into your language as one verb. The problem is if you do that, you have to learn thousands maybe, right? The other way is to focus on the out, the in, the up, and get the trend of what it could mean.
And no way is better than the other. It just depends which one suits you better as a learner.
Right, right. Well, look, Christian, the next one, the number 4 phrasal verb on our list, it also includes that participle out. It was the 5th one on my list and the 6th one on your list. So we had it in a very similar place, and that is to figure out.
Figure out. It's a good one. Why did you put it on the list?
I feel like that's a very common phrasal verb. That's why people use it a lot. I hear it all the time. We need to figure out what to do in the business world. We need to figure out this problem. Yeah. We need to understand what the solution is. We need to find the solution, something like that.
And I wonder, is the origin something to do with figures as in like numbers? Because you can also call numbers figures. So is it something to do with like calculating?
That's right. It comes from Latin, like a Latin figura, like a shape or a form. And originally a figure was a shape, a form, a symbol, okay? And over time in English, that got connected to things like mathematics, like numbers. And then to figure was a synonym to calculate. So in English, it kind of moved from to calculate to, is connected to reasoning and to thinking and then to understanding. So think you put all the numbers on, you have a problem, you put all the figures, the numbers on a paper, and then you get the solution.
And it's a similar idea, right? Like at the beginning of the calculation, you can't see the answer, like it's hidden. And then at the end, it comes out, right? So you can see it.
You bring it out into the open. And some similar phrasal verbs like this is like you find out, you find something out. It means you discover it, you bring it out. You can also work out a solution, which is similar to figure out in a way. Maybe you're doing a little more work. It's more emphasized work there, but you find the solution at the end. You can sort things out, which is similar. So it's about bringing things out into the open, metaphorically, of course.
And how does he use it in the speech?
Here it is.
I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out.
So he had no idea how college was going to help him find the solution, understand.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think just in general, it's a difficult time for anybody, right? Like when you're, if you're like 18 years old or on, even if you're, 22, you have to make big decisions about what you're going to do with the rest of your life. And sometimes you really have no idea, right?
And think about young students when they're asked to figure out what they're going to be as an adult. They have to, understand what kind of job they're going to do when they're 12 years old. When I think a lot of 40-year-olds still haven't figured out what they're doing with their lives. Yeah.
Did you have like a dream job when you were younger, like, astronaut or?
I think I had the some typical jobs, Christian, that a lot of boys have. Like I wanted to be a paleontologist for a long, long time. Then I wanted to be an archaeologist.
It was going to be like a Indiana Jones kind of archaeologist, right?
Exactly. Obviously, I was influenced by Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, typical 80s things. And then I just loved history. So I wanted to be a history teacher. And then I started traveling and this connected over to teaching English because I was already teaching, right?
Right.
Well, look, let me add up the points and figure out what the next one is on our list, okay? And this was actually a little hard to figure out because there was a tie.
A tie, okay.
And that's because one of these words I put in second place and you put in seventh place. And the other word was exactly the opposite. You put it in second place and it was my seventh place word. So both of those equal out to 13 points. Let's just call them 3A and 3B. They're equal though, okay? 3B, this one, a fun word, is to screw up.
That was on my list, I think.
Right. You had this in second place, Christian. I'm happy that you put screw up at second place.
Really? Wow.
Because screw can mean quite a lot of things in English, right? And one of them is a kind of a bad word.
Yeah, I chose this phrasal verb because, again, it seems like really useful, but it's also kind of, informal English. And I don't think it's, a phrase that you would find in an exercise book. I don't think anybody's ever asked me about it in class. It's kind of like PG-13 kind of phrase. You can use it in most situations, and it's just a nice shortcut, to say that you made a mistake, you did something wrong.
Right. To screw up means to make a mistake. And since you said it's PG-13, right, what you mean is it's not very vulgar, but it's not super innocent as well. It's something in the middle. And maybe that's because to screw also has another meaning, not the phrasal verb, just to screw can mean what, Christian? To have sex in a vulgar way. It could mean to have sex, right?
Yes, yes.
But it's not as vulgar as the F word, right? That really, really vulgar word in English. And you can also say to F up, which would be to make a mistake.
Yes.
That's a more vulgar way to say it. To screw up is to make a mistake, but we're in the middle here as far as how strong that is.
Mm.
Maybe even lighter, weaker than that would be to say to mess up, which is the same meaning, to make a mistake. So yes, screw up is somewhere in the middle.
Do you know the origin of this phrase? Like, did it start with screw, like the metal object?
Yes. Something like that. So to screw, it's coming from Middle French, okay? And this had to do with twisting something, with twisting devices,
Right.
okay?
Right.
And over time, the metaphor goes like this. If you twist something out of its shape, so maybe it's in a straight shape and then you turn it, you twist it, that means you ruin it, you destroy it. You make a mess out of it. You make a mistake out of it. And over time, that became what it means today.
Right. So this metaphor in English, like if something is straight, that it's good and correct and true, and if something is like twisted, then it's then it's bad or maybe false, or that's a metaphor that appears in other parts of language as well, right? You can even say directly like this, this politician, he's a straight guy, like he's a straight shooter. Or you can say like this politician is crooked.
Right. Crooked means out of shape, right? Bent. Yeah, in English, that just very often it means that somebody is, yeah, not good. It means bad in some way.
And thinking about it, like this verb screw, you can use it with like any preposition, right? You can do like screw up, screw down, screw through.
Screw over. Yes, to screw somebody over means you do something bad to them. Right. It's a verb that you can use in a lot of phrasal verbs. I mean, there must be like 20 different phrasal verbs with screw. It's very flexible.
That's why I put it at number 2, because it's awesome. It's the best one.
Yeah, you know what, Christian, you said no one has ever asked you about that word in class. I've had questions about this, I think from 2 different places. One from business people, because they heard it in a meeting with native English speakers
Oh, okay.
who said, I screwed up yesterday, or, we really screwed up on this project internally, right? I don't think they'd say that with customers, but because it's so informal and a little hard. Um, and then other people have asked me about it because they heard it in films. Or I remember one student, he was in New York and he heard, this is classic Christian, he heard the taxi driver yell, "Screw you," out the window.
Hey, I'm walking here.
Okay, and he remembered it and he asked me about it. And that's so perfect for a taxi driver to scream in New York.
If I went to New York and I saw a taxi driver doing that, I would be so happy. It would be like the most authentic experience ever.
Yeah. Another place that people may know this is from a type of cocktail, a screwdriver. Now, a screwdriver is a tool. You have the little metal piece that you use to connect things. That thing is the screw, and then you have the screwdriver to turn it. And there's also a cocktail called a screwdriver.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, let's listen to how Steve Jobs actually used it himself.
I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly.
So I tried to apologize for making such a big mistake. That's what he means. Okay, let's go ahead and look at 3A, right? The one that tied with screw up. This phrasal verb was to button up.
Was this even on my list, or was this only on your list?
I'm glad to hear that you really thought about your list, Christian, and you had it in 7th place. I had this up in 2nd place. I put it up really high.
Oh, okay.
Why? Just because I thought it was an interesting metaphor, a good example of how phrasal verbs work and how they come into being as well. Not because I think that it's a very frequent one. I think this is quite infrequent. I just thought it was a good example of a phrasal verb. What does to button up mean?
Well, the first meaning that I think of is, if somebody has their shirt with all of the buttons all the way up, then they're kind of very dressed, like a formal kind of way, maybe. And for some reason in my mind, I picture like a uniform with the buttons all the way up to the top. So they're kind of like rigid and they can't move very well. And maybe they have like a serious face. In my mind, it's like, those British like soldiers who they're not allowed to laugh or smile.
Right, that are guarding Buckingham Palace. Right, and they're very, very stiff and rigid. Exactly, and I think they actually have buttons on that uniform. And definitely the buttons are completely buttoned up vertically. The top button is, closed. It's buttoned because they need to be perfect. And if you open one, the more you unbutton, the more crazy and wild the guy gets. And he might unbutton it in the evening, right?
Yeah.
But when he's working, he's buttoned up. So somehow that means very professional, disciplined, organized, reserved, maybe.
Isn't that that's kind of crazy that just the way that you wear your shirt can tell so much about the context, like what situation you're in and what type of person you are. Like when you think about those, maybe like an American detective show from the 70s or something, and some of the police might be wearing their uniforms with the buttons all the way up, and then the really cool guys, they have their buttons like half down and they have their chest hair and their gold chains out, you know.
I feel like the guy should be in Miami somewhere, and we can really see a lot of chest hair and unbuttoned shirt.
They have more hair on their chest than I have on my head.
Right. Well, that's easy. But
Shut up.
but yes, exactly. So that's an unbuttoned kind of image. And in American English, a buttoned up person does mean a organized, disciplined, professional type of person. That up at the end in the phrasal verb, that adds the idea of completion. That's why I put it on the list, Christian, because if you button up, it goes vertically up a shirt and then you complete at the end. That up we use in a lot of phrasal verbs like eat up, finish your food, drink up, finish your drink completely. I need to lock up the house. That means I need to lock all of the doors and windows completely, right? So the up is about completion.
So how does Steve Jobs use this in his speech, this button up?
It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes.
So actually, I think we need a little context here. There was an expression in that complete sentence in the speech where his doctor told him he needed to get his affairs in order. That means he's going to die soon and he needs to get everything organized. That's what he needed to button up something. He needed to get it completed or in order. That's what he meant.
It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes.
He's using it in, it's like the same kind of idea, but slightly different, that you're not really talking about like the personality of the person. You're talking more about the idea that, if a person is buttoned up, then they're the kind of person who has everything like organized and planned and, everything's like finished and correct and done, right? That's the idea.
And in this case, let's say that open shirt is like his life. It's very chaotic. There are lots of things that aren't completed. And then if you button up everything, you complete it. You put them in order. Exactly.
It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family.
So let's button up our third place ranking. We had screw up and button up. Christian's, was very informal and a bit vulgar. And mine was very buttoned up and disciplined.
Okay.
Let's move to our second place, most interesting phrasal verb. And we both had this high on our list. I had it in second place and you had it in fourth place.
Oh, okay.
That gave it a grand total of 16 points. And I think we just have to, encounter this word. We just need to run into it. We need to stumble into it. That was the phrasal verb, to stumble into.
So I'm curious why you chose this one. Like, why did you put it so high on your list?
Why I put it there is because to stumble, that's a kind of interesting word. I think a lot of people don't know it. I do get people asking me about that from time to time.
Yeah.
And I just like the visual metaphor. I'm a very visual learner, right? I like little cartoon images in my mind with a lot of sound effects, as people may have heard here. And
animal sounds, yeah.
Animal sounds, yes, like pigs, turkeys, chickens. And to stumble into something is a really fun image in my mind. That's why I chose it. Why did you choose it?
Yeah, I chose it because I think, again, it's a word that, I don't actually teach very often. And also because my son sometimes plays this video game called Stumble Guys.
Oh, yes, right.
Yeah. And so stumbling is kind of like when you can't walk properly, or if you you walk and you almost fall over. It's like you're kind of walking in an uncoordinated way, right?
Right.
Difficult to describe stumbling.
Let's say we're walking. Well, I think we have another verb that's similar, but still slightly different, which is to trip. Let's say there's a cable or a stone on the ground, and then you hit it with your foot and you fall down. I think I would use the verb to trip here. I tripped over a stone. I tripped on a cable. But let's say you hit that stone, you didn't fall down, but you almost fell down. So you made a funny movement and you kind of went to the right, left, like you're drunk or something, but you caught your balance. You didn't fall down. That's to stumble. That's what I think of it as. And yeah, if you're very drunk or on drugs, you might be stumbling down the street.
It's such a useful metaphor because sometimes in life, if you're trying to do something, like maybe you're trying to learn a new skill or you're trying to finish a project or something, let's say you fall over or you trip, but only a little bit, like, so a stumble is kind of like it's like a little baby failure or like a half failure, something like that.
Right, because you catch your balance, you don't fall down. And I think we use this a lot in a metaphoric way. And to stumble into means you run into, you discover, but accidentally, right? I just stumble into some information. It's like I'm drunk. Anglo-Saxon English speakers tend to have a bad relationship with alcohol. So let's just say that someone's drunk and then they discover something. They just kind of fall into a museum. You just stumble into a museum and then you discover something by accident.
Yeah.
Right? That's how I think of it.
Yeah. So it's I guess that would be a kind of synonym, right? To fall into something. So I think there are plenty of films and television series where you have a character who's like let's say an innocent person, like a normal everyday person, and they stumble into some kind of trouble. That's a great genre of films, right? I love that when an ordinary person stumbles into, I don't know, maybe a mystery or some kind of like criminal activity, and then they have to get revenge or something. Like, that's great.
And I guess the difference between falling into something and stumbling into it is just fall feels more dramatic to me, right? And stumbling, yes, it's very similar, but it's slightly more like you're walking. One action happens and you try to react, and then that leads to another action, and then you try to react, and then now you fell into it. Now, this word is an older word. And actually, it's still quite similar in German. You could still see the similarities between German or Dutch. In German, it's stolpern, strompelen. I don't know how to say that. Dutch speakers, I'm sorry. But it's still quite near. You can still see the ST, can't you? And the L's there.
What was the word in Dutch?
Written STROM, strom, and then PELEN, strompelen. Strompelen.
That's interesting because in British English, like an informal word for a prostitute is a strumpet.
A strumpet? I've never heard that before. It sounds like something I could get in a restaurant. So your wife will say, "Oh, look at that strumpet over there."
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, it's obviously Dutch. It has to be Dutch or German, right?
It's probably about prostitutes being in the street, and then they're kind of like stumbling blocks. They're little things that you can walk by and you fall down on them. You get stuck on them in some way. They're obstacles, something like that, I guess.
Fall into them. Whoops.
Here's some other ways we use stumble. So you can stumble through a presentation. I like that one. There's a business one. So you're not very sure what you're doing and you're just kind of falling as you go.
Like there's some mistakes during the presentation, but they're not like total failures. They're just like little moments where you kind of walk a bit, unbalanced, right?
Right. Another way to say to stumble into, you can stumble upon. It's kind of the same. It's like you find. You can stumble across something. Again, it's the same. You discover it, you find it. And then we have stumbling blocks, which are
Mm,
obstacles.
of course.
Phrasal verbs are a stumbling block for many learners of English, right?
Yes, that's very true. They are a very annoying part of English. Very true.
Well, look, let's listen to how Steve Jobs used it.
And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on.
I love that. So, the image is that he's at this university. He doesn't have any formal classes to go to because he's dropped out apparently of his studies. And so he's just like walking around and kind of like falling into different classes that just interest him. Yeah, it's a great image.
He follows his curiosity and he just stumbles into some interesting classes. You know what, Christian? I don't know if you noticed, but actually that piece of audio had 3 of the words we had on our list today.
Oh,
He stumbled into something. It was priceless, what he discovered.
and turn out.
Turned out to be priceless.
Yes, yes. Wow.
Yeah, so there we go. 3 of them in one.
And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on.
That's a great example of how English can be so hard to understand, right? That sentence itself could have 3 stumbling blocks. We have the phrasal verb to stumble into, we had to turn out, 2 difficult phrasal verbs, and then priceless.
Yeah, I mean, I think what learners should notice is that by using these phrasal verbs or by using idioms or specific vocabulary, it's not that your English is becoming more advanced or somehow it's becoming more like poetic or anything like that. It's actually the opposite, right? Like the objective of all language is to be as efficient as possible. And by learning these phrases and by using them, you're actually saving time. Like you can say the same thing, but with less energy, with less effort. Because like I'm imagining trying to say that sentence without using those phrasal verbs. It would be so much more complexity in that sentence, right?
Right. Instead of saying stumbling into, what would he say? I walked into the classes and I discovered something accidentally. It's just much longer.
Yeah.
And yeah, right. Efficiency is a big part of language as long as we can understand each other and we agree on what we understand.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, efficiency wins when possible. Actually, everyone, let me play that one more time and listen to all 3 of those. We had stumble into, turn out, and priceless.
And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on.
Okay, now I think we should go to the first one, the most interesting phrasal verb in this whole speech. But we're not going to stumble into it. We're going to hit it with some purpose. And the crazy thing is, Christian, out of all the phrasal verbs that were on the list, we both chose the same one. Insane.
No way.
We both put this one in first place.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah, crazy. Just like in the verb section. I really was surprised. I didn't expect that at all, not with so many options.
Well, you know what they say, Matt? Great minds think alike, right?
Or maybe it was just high up on the list and, because it starts with a D. Okay, and the phrasal verb was to drop out.
I mean, I chose this because I feel like it's a really important part of this speech specifically. And also, I also feel like it's a very important cultural thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's almost like fashionable to say that you dropped out, but you're still successful, right? Doesn't that feel like a kind of like an entrepreneur kind of trend, like a cool thing to say?
Yes, and I think part of the reason is that Steve Jobs is one of the best examples of it. It makes for a good story, doesn't it? So to drop out of school specifically means you're in school, but then you just stop and you leave. So it's kind of like you fall out of school. So to drop is similar to fall. Now, if we have something in our hands and we drop it, it typically means, it could be by accident. Sometimes it means we actually want to make the object fall. It's connected to that. And if you think metaphorically, like all the kids are in school and then one of them just falls out And the other ones continue on, but that kid fell down into the water, to the ground, and was forgotten in some way. Now, when you drop out of school, normally it's, well, is it your decision? Yes, it's your decision. It's not that someone kicked you out, which could be another phrasal verb. The school didn't remove you or kick you out. To drop out is more like you just didn't return. Okay? You just kind of fell away. Now, you could drop out of school, drop out of university. You could drop out of a course. You could drop out of a competition. I could use it as a noun as well, like you're a high school dropout.
Yeah, that's like an insult, right? It's like, why is he working as a security guard at Walmart? He's a dropout. No offense to Walmart security guards, but yeah.
Christian, do you know I worked at a Walmart for about 3 months in my life? That was a summer job. Yeah. But I wasn't a security guard. There were a lot of high school dropouts.
I bet they were the fun ones, right?
They were fun. Maybe they were very creative. They just didn't fit into the scholastic system or something, you know? But anyways, this word drop, just the verb to drop, by the way, is a very old native English word coming from Germanic roots. It's not from French. It's not from Latin. And yeah, you can still see the connection to German today, which is Tropfen. It's like drop. You also can have the drop, like one drop of rain or a teardrop.
Have you heard about drop bears in Australia?
Yes, because you told me about them, Christian. What's a drop bear?
Well, a drop bear is one of the world's most dangerous animals, okay? And basically you can be walking down the street in any Australian city or in the country. Basically, nowhere is safe in the entire country. And you can be walking along and there are these bears, these drop bears, that they live in trees. And imagine a koala bear, but completely insane with like gigantic teeth and gigantic nails. Okay. And if you walk under the tree, the drop bear drops onto you and just starts attacking and will probably kill you, almost instantly.
Do they actually jump on you, or it's just randomly they drop out of trees?
Well, that's the thing, is that you can never really completely relax in Australia, because at any moment a drop bear could just fall on you and then, it's over, game over.
Well, this sounds like something that Australians who were stumbling around the streets after a night at the pub might have invented.
No, it's totally real. You should definitely Google drop bears and you'll learn all about them. Very fascinating creatures.
Go Google drop bears. But come back. Don't drop out of this lesson.
If you've ever been in Australia and you've heard about drop bears, or if you've ever been attacked by a drop bear, please send us an email and tell us the story. We'd love to hear it.
Actually, if we get a really good story from somebody, we might read it in a future episode. That would be great.
Yes.
Well, look, let's listen to how Steve Jobs used drop out. I don't think he was talking about drop bears.
I dropped out of Reed College after the first 6 months.
So he dropped out of college after the first 6 months. He left before he finished. He uses it again, though. Let's listen to another clip.
The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting.
He actually used an interesting thing there, didn't he? He said he dropped out of his classes and then he dropped in to classes that he did want to visit. Now, I have heard to drop in, like to visit, like I could drop into your house to visit you, but I've never really heard it about dropping in at university. So it was a little playing with language there.
Yeah, I think it's a reminder to anyone who's learning a language that there's so much language that we use that you're not going to find in any, official place. Like, you're not going to find that specific meaning in a dictionary. But if you know something about English and how it works, then you understand what it means, and so anyone who's learning a language should feel free to kind of invent, as long as you can transmit your meaning, as long as people can get the meaning, then that's absolutely correct and perfect and good language, even if you might not find it in the dictionary.
That's so true. And it's a reminder that native English speakers don't learn phrasal verbs in some list or at school. I think as children, we just kind of learn how the system works and then we play with it. And we just are free to invent it. They're kind of like Lego pieces, if you like, little Legos, and you can just build your own combination. Now, obviously, some combinations have a fixed meaning, and we learn that through hearing it and years of hearing it. But it's also a system that you can play with, and English speakers will just create a phrasal verb in the moment to make a joke or to make a story more interesting.
Yes, that's very true.
Okay, everyone, just to review our phrasal verbs, we had turn out, to figure out, to screw up, to button up, to stumble into, and then to drop out. You know what? There were some honorable mentions, Christian, that just missed the list, right? We had to pop out, which was a fun one. He was talking about giving birth, a baby being born, and it just popped out. We had to sign off, to let down, to side with. Yeah, we'll have to speak about those another day.
Matt, can you hear that knocking sound? What is that?
Oh, you know who that is? That's Hopper, Christian. Just a second. I need to go talk to him.
Hopper from your basement.
G'day. Sorry, mate. Excuse me.
I asked him earlier to create some stories, some review stories, because we know that reviewing words is good exercise. When I sent him some food earlier today, I gave him the lists of words, and he told me he created some stories. So I'm going to bring him over here to the microphone and let him read the stories. Okay, everyone? All of our adjectives, all of our verbs and phrasal verbs are included here. And see if you can follow the story. You know, the words are used in context, which is really good for learning. Okay, Hopper, go ahead.
How you gone, you legends? Bloody stoked to be here. It's time for Hopper's Word Review. First up, our adjective story. On the last day of his holiday, Jono made a foolish mistake. He left a priceless family photo on a table down at the local pub. The waiter noticed a subtle detail in the photo and rang up Jono. Jono thought that was pretty neat and told the waiter he was a top bloke. All right, mate, now we have the story reviewing the verbs. After finishing university, Emma decided to hitchhike across Australia. She didn't want to settle for a boring life in her small town. Along the way, she tried not to waste her money. She got small jobs from time to time, but always quit them after a few months before moving on. Eventually, she settled down in Sydney and was hired as a teacher by a language school. And that's where she still works to this day. And to finish things, let's listen to the story using phrasal verbs. Steve-O dropped out of school when he was just 18. But thanks to some mates, he stumbled into a job at a small pizzeria. On his first day, he screwed up several orders and almost got sacked. But he worked hard and figured out how to do the job well, eventually becoming a manager. A few years later, he helped button up an important project that helped the pizzeria expand into new cities. And in the end, it turned out that he was one of the company's best employees.
Thank you very much, Hopper, for those amazing review stories. And thank you very much, Matt, for this amazing episode.
Well, hopefully there was something interesting in there for everyone. And I look forward to looking at part 2, right? There's a lot more to come with this Steve Jobs speech. I can't wait to see what you put on your lists as well, Christian. So we'll see that next time.
Yes, and that brings us to the end of this episode of Canguro in the Wild. If you want a transcript of this episode, plus a list of the key vocabulary we discussed today, you can find it on the website at kanguroenglish.com. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to send us some materials related to today's episode, please send them to us at podcast@kanguroenglish.com. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to support this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Matt, as always, thank you so much for joining me, and to everyone else, I'll see you in class.